Hi there, I'm Cali Werner here with the International OCD Foundation. In honor of OCD Awareness Week, I have two incredible athletes with me to share a little bit about their personal journeys and their OCD treatment along the way. Aly Raisman and Zane Gonzalez, thanks for being here.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks for having us.
So to dive in, I'd love for you to both just share a little bit about your OCD journey from the beginning. And Zane, we'll start with you, and then Aly, you'll take it away.
So with me, it's something that started at a young age. My mom got diagnosed with like ADHD, OCD, and bipolar disorder. Kind of had a lot of mental stigmas going around. And my dad, an amazing man, was always there to help out with her in a lot of different ways. And so my OCD came about around like fifth grade, junior high-ish. More or less, it started with intrusive thoughts. Like I think Aly had mentioned earlier a little bit about hurting people's feelings, and I feel like that's something that's major with me, and it kind of takes a toll. And to the point where it'll linger on for weeks, months, and stuff like that. The thing like keep coming about. So for that was just a big struggle for me, and that led getting the diagnosis at an early age, figuring out what it was, and then kind of understanding like, hey, this is a normal thing. Like it's okay. You don't have to like hide it as much. And for a while, there was a lot of anger that would come with it. Like, why do I feel this way? Why do I have the remorse or whatever it may be? And for that, it kind of took a major toll on me in a lot of ways, and ended up having to seek anger management reasons with that stuff. And over time, throughout high school and stuff like that, I've kind of been able to grow. But that's essentially kind of where it began for me.
Do you remember a point in time where you didn't know what was going on before the diagnosis?
I would say prior to like, I think my official diagnosis was 6th or 7th grade. Prior to that in elementary school, there was a lot of flare-ups, whether it be keep going back to this door and keep having to shut it, or if that door isn't shut, it's a little cracked open, tomorrow something might come in and something really bad will happen. So it's like those intrusive dark thoughts are the ones that kind of consume. And it honestly just trapped my mind in a lot of different ways, to where whatever it may be at that young age, whether it be walking through a mall, going to play a soccer game, or even playing football, whenever those thoughts would come flooding in, it was just like a tidal wave, and it would take me out a lot of times. And whenever that happened, that led to the anger issues, and that's pretty much what led on to going to get the diagnosis and officially figuring out what it is and understanding all that comes with it. And within that, having my family, having my faith, and having my dad and mom, who they truly are amazing people, helped me through it. There was a lot of crying moments, a lot of why is this happening, or why is this, and take a deep breath and relax. And for me, that was just a massive thing, because I feel like a lot of times it comes back to people view OCD in different lights, and every OCD is a little bit different in many different ways. So the looks and the negative attention I would receive at times was kind of just taxing.
Yeah.
Especially for a little kid, because you're just trying to fit in, right?
Right.
And so after a time, you kind of just learn. Once I got that diagnosis, it allowed me to learn and accept what it was, and get confidence with it.
I feel like OCD showed up for me from an early age. I started gymnastics when I was 2 years old. I am the oldest of 4 kids, so I think I felt the responsibility of being a very good big sister, which I've always loved being a big sister, but I think I took that very seriously. And then on top of that, the intensity of my gymnastics career from such a young age, I think I started to try to find moments of having control in order to, I guess I thought it would help me do better in my gymnastics career. So I can remember my teammates and I, when we were younger, we would say knock on wood, and we would literally, knock on our heads. And we thought if we did that, maybe we would have a good competition. Or if we did that and then I did my best routine, then I would say, okay, well, I have to do that now before every time I do a bar routine or a beam routine. And I just remember, gymnastics is such a dangerous sport. So I did have a lot of anxiety around practicing or competing. But if I did well, I would try to emulate how to do that again, so that I would be safe and injury free as much as I could try. No matter what in sports, you can't always prevent things from happening. But I tried to do as much as I could, I guess, to prevent it. And I think when I was younger, I really believed that that would be the difference. If I, touch something a certain amount of times, or if I, ate the same thing before the meets, that would help me. And then I think as I got older, I realized that it was showing up for me more. And I can remember at 2015 World Championships, I was so stressed, and I feel like my OCD was not good there. I just wasn't in a good headspace. And actually it was I really struggled. I didn't make any event finals, which was really devastating for me. And I think it was a really important moment where actually a teammate said to me, I think, stressing yourself out so much with your OCD, and it's not working for you. You're not competing well. You don't seem to be doing mentally well. And it was just I almost had to hit a point where it was so hard for me mentally to keep up with that. And it also wasn't working, that I think it was eye-opening for me that I just had to figure something out. And OCD, obviously, it doesn't just change overnight. It's something, I think, at least for me, it's sort of an up and down journey. But now in my post-gymnastics career, I think being in the public eye and then having OCD is a really tricky combination. It definitely exacerbates it because my OCD now shows up in worrying if I hurt someone's feelings, if I said the right thing, and just feeling that I have to be on all the time. And I'm always worrying or wondering if what I said. And so it was really bad years ago, but I would finish speaking at an event like this, and I get off stage and I would replay what I said in my head, but oftentimes I was on stage for an hour, so I couldn't remember obviously everything that I said, but that would stress me out more. And I've done therapy over the years. I do weekly therapy, and I'm in a much better place, but I also learned that when I'm overtired, my OCD is worse. So one of my favorite quotes is, if you don't pick a day to rest, your body will pick it for you. So when I'm working too much and traveling too much, my OCD is bad, my body hurts, I feel sick. It just, everything is kind of accumulates, and it's not good. So I've really learned the importance of having balance. And it's been a nice realization for me, because when my OCD is really bad, I almost feel like I'm a little bit nicer to myself about it, where it makes me realize that I'm overtired and I'm just doing too much and I have to take a beat. So
yeah, you hit on something really important too. I think that a lot of athletes and individuals watching can relate to, and it's that there's a point where you almost don't want to get treatment because you fear that that's making your performance better, right? Like that you fear that OCD is actually helping you. And was it not until that friend pointed it out to you that this is not helping that you started to recognize, or even just trust in that, okay, I need some good therapy?
I'm trying to think back. I imagine when I was younger, I still was aware that it was not fun to think about or worry about, did I, have the right hair elastics, or if I had to wear a different leotard than I wore last time. I kind of knew that those things, relying on, or if I didn't have access to the same food that I normally have, all those things, I think I understood that it wasn't healthy for me. But at the time, it was OCD wasn't talked about like it is now. Mental health wasn't talked about like it is now. And so I just don't think I had any tools, or it wasn't really talked about. And, some of my teammates also had it. So I think it was very normalized. And it's also something that I don't think that my parents knew. It can sometimes be invisible, and other people might not be able to see it. And even if they can, I think, most adults are really doing the best that they can, and they might not even understand or recognize what OCD is. So I think I knew, and sometimes that can make things more stressful, is being aware that I know I shouldn't be doing this. I know this isn't helping me, but I have to do it. Yeah. I honestly, even last night, when I have a really early morning flight, I feel like I have to check my alarm. I don't have to check it a certain amount of times, but I just have to double check that my alarm is set, because I'm worried I'm not going to wake up.
Right.
It's funny. I was actually recently with my friend, and we got to go on a trip together. And because it wasn't work related, I was working on not having my OCD and not double checking things. And the one time I didn't double check, we messed up. We were supposed to do some fun excursion together, and we got up super early for this excursion, and it was actually the day after that. So it ended up being fine. We were laughing, and I was trying to do exposure therapy of not double checking. But of course, one time I didn't double check. We had the wrong time, but it ended up working out, and it was funny, and my friend was supportive and understanding. So I'm trying to expose myself to those things and prove to myself that it's okay. And if something does happen, it's not always because I didn't double check something and I'm human and it's okay.
Well, and a lot of the time, OCD makes you think, well, the worst case scenario will happen if I don't do this, right? And so then in that situation, I love that he said, and it was okay, right? And we move forward, not engaging in that worst case scenario. And so there's also a lot of stigma, as you both know, that comes with OCD. And so just wanted to know if, there were any times in your own lives or journeys where someone was trying to relate and maybe they said, oh, I'm so OCD too, right? And that's not actually what they're describing. They're probably describing type A personality or something else. And so was there a time where that misconception really got in the way of either your happiness or your performance?
For me personally, I mean, I think a lot of people misconstrue type A with OCD a lot. I just think they're very similar in some ways, but also extremely different in a lot of different ways as well. So for me, it's like I've always been a very clean guy, and I feel like for the longest time, people just thought it's not OCD. You just like to be clean, blah blah blah, and they don't know the thoughts that come along with all that stuff. And that's the part where if you know, you kind of know. If you don't, you kind of don't. And it's the only thing you can do is just try to educate yourself a little bit on it. And it's like Ted Lasso says, like, be curious, not judgmental. It's like a big saying. I love that saying as well. And it's just like one of those things that really does hit. Like it's in a joking manner, but it does make a lot of sense because a lot of people will see different things and just jump to the conclusion and go about their day. And then that's that. Right. So it's like kind of like I jokingly tell my wife, it's like a elementary playground, right? So kids will see something, don't ask a question, they'll just do it and then go about their business. And I feel like a lot of adults kind of have the similar mindset in some ways. And whether it's just not wanting to be educated or just just not caring as much. I just feel like some of those things come into play. So for me, I feel like those misconceptions a lot, kind of like, especially throughout my high school years, especially with like kids like that, they would like try to downplay whatever you're going through in some aspects. And for me specifically, kicking is very like similar to golf. It's very precise, same exact thing, similar to gymnastics, a little bit more athletic than me. But it's one of those things that everything's so detail oriented. So whenever people would try to pretty much like downplay the whole situation, it would really get to me in a lot of different ways because I knew those thoughts later on. I know the next day's thoughts, the next week's thoughts, the next month's thoughts about something that somebody said for not even 5 seconds. And it's just, those things linger on so much. So for me, those took a massive toll, and it just finding the right people, the right family, and the people were able to understand and accept you and like actually see who you are as a person and understand these are the thoughts in your head. And for me, just finding, I mean, my wife's incredible. My family's awesome. And my friends they like to tease me a little bit, but in a good way. So, it's all really good. And for me, it's kind of been those things nowadays, I just don't let it get to me in a lot of different ways. But as a kid, it's harder said than done.
Yeah. Yeah. You said something really important, and that was that people downplay it, right? I think a lot of people will say, well, of course you tap that surface a few times, or of course we see you repeating that before you go to perform. And yeah, a lot of athletes have a superstitious behavior or two, but that's very different from OCD taking that to an extreme. And often they think, well, this is how they thrive. This is how they perform well. And individuals with OCD don't enjoy it. It's not something they want to be doing, right?
It's crippling in a sense. And I think Aly hit on the head. It's like if you really do have that belief, if you don't do it, you're not going to perform. And then if you don't do it and you don't perform, so you're kind of already losing the battle before you even step on the field because you're already assuming if I didn't do this, you're kind of not going to perform as well as you could. So for me, like the socks, like I think the whole world kind of knows this point, my socks in my head stuff. I try to work on like the exposure part of that during practice and get away with it pretty good. But when you get to the game, sometimes anybody with OCD knows there's truly like you can't control
the
that.
harder exposure.
And it's like the harder you try to fight it, the harder it just comes and comes and comes. So it's just more or less you kind of got to find different ways and avenues to deal with it. And for me, like breathing, taking deep breaths, taking a step back, you won't fully get rid of it or get rid of those thoughts in those moments. But that time and that split second, you kind of catch your breath a little bit and like, hey, it's okay.
Yeah.
And my big thing is, and I think kind of hit on it as well, showing yourself grace. Like you have to show yourself grace in so many ways. Like the goal is to chase perfection, but you're not going to get there. That's not how it goes.
Yeah. Yeah. You're building a tolerance, right? And it's not something that you can wake up and just say, tomorrow I'm eliminating this compulsion altogether. But the fact that you're starting at practice and working your way up, that's good ERP, good exposure with response prevention. It's amazing. Aly, what about for you? Any common misconceptions that have come up in your own career?
When I was competing, I don't feel that OCD and mental health were talked about. I think it was something that I really didn't understand why I was feeling the way that I felt. I also, now that I'm out of gymnastics, and I can't believe it's been almost 10 years since I competed, but I guess I didn't understand what it felt like to not feel this anxiety that felt crippling, as you mentioned that word. I think now that I'm out of it and I've done years of therapy and I'm still in it, I think it just became so normalized in my world, and there was so much pressure. And in gymnastics, I think striving for that perfection and trying to please people, and it's a subjective sport where, even if I felt that it was the best routine I did, but the judges or my coaches didn't like it, I think I learned from a young age that it was more important what they thought. And it has taken me years and years to unlearn and work on not people pleasing. And I think that that's something that is hard in those subjective sports, is that oftentimes athletes are taught right when you finish your turn, you immediately turn to your coaches for approval and to make sure that they're happy with what you did. Whereas I think it's really important to reflect on how you feel about it first before seeing their thoughts or what they think. And so I think that just really made my OCD worse, because I just wanted to do whatever I could to please the people around me. And then I think you add on the pressure of, not only competing on such a big stage, but also social media and just trying to be perfect, not in and out of the gym as well. So I think there's a lot of misconceptions around it. I think that we live in a world where people will look at a screen and think that they know something about someone's life. And I don't know if I'll ever understand, or I'm just still so baffled by the things that people write on people's pages. It's just so upsetting and odd to me that people think that it's okay to write nasty things to people. I mean, no matter who you are, people, I think, get such negativity at times. And I think that can really impact people. And I don't think that, I don't even know if our world really has a grasp on how negative and how much pressure social media can put on people, and how much that can impact the way that, we all see ourselves. And I think that for people that have OCD, at least for me, it can make it worse, because you're trying to be mindful of pleasing people, but it's impossible to please everyone.
Yeah, the social media piece is huge, right? There's a lot of people out there spreading misinformation as well. And I think it makes it a lot harder for people to get to evidence-based treatment. And that's why it's so important that you're here doing what you're doing, representing the International OCD Foundation to get people to the right place. And so all that to say, Aly, you bring up a really good point in the athlete field, right? Because athletes are posting things. I did an interview of 20 Olympians on their Olympic experiences, and they talked about how hard in the Olympic Village it can be to watch another athlete going to perform before they go out to do the same performance, because there's so many comments and just feedback and things like that. And so in a study with Comer and colleagues, some of the research shows that in collegiate athletes, over double the population of the general population struggle with OCD. And so I just wanted to ask you both, does this resonate with your own observations in elite sport? Do you feel more individuals in elite sport tend to struggle with OCD?
It doesn't surprise me to hear that how common OCD is with athletes. I think there's this pressure to always be better. And I think that with the amount of access that everyone has to athletes, whether that's watching on TV all the time or watching on social media, there's just so much constant access that I think our world has lost sight of how hard it is to be an athlete. I mean, when I go to an NFL game or an NHL game, I always observe the fans in the audience, and it is baffling to me the amount of people that will scream at the athletes there when they're trying so hard. Nobody wants to mess up. No one wants to not have a good game. And I think it's bizarre to me and disappointing that we live in a world where fans can be amazing, and there are some that are incredible. And obviously when athletes win, everyone's happy if that's the team you're rooting for, but it's disappointing to see how hard and nasty some people can be, because I don't think people really understand how difficult it is to stay at the top, and it's impossible to be at your peak all the time, especially when people are competing every week or playing every week. And it's very difficult to stay in your best shape and your best, even mentally, for a very long time to sustain that. And of course, I also think you need some luck as an athlete not to get injured. There's so many other factors that are out of our control that can happen. And so it just doesn't surprise me to hear how common OCD is, because I think so much can feel out of our control. And OCD, at least for me, is a way to feel more in control of my performance and my life, especially if I was traveling internationally, or it was a way for me to feel like I was doing a similar routine, to feel some sense of, I guess it's false safety, because maybe for a quick moment, a fleeting moment, it felt better, but then the thoughts
Until it
would
didn't.
come back.
Yeah, that was well said. That false perception of certainty is how I always explain it as well. So that was very well said. And Zane, what about for you, just in elite sport, mental health observations?
Yeah, I just feel like in elite sports, especially like in the men's field and women's field as well, but the men's field is such like a masculine thing where everybody's trying to always get a leg up on each other. Everybody's trying to get the best version of each other. So it's just a constant competitive. And everybody in whatever sport they are has been probably the best at whatever sport it is their entire life, right? So whenever it comes to athletes that are at that elite level with OCD, I feel like it could, for me, I try to look at it as a positive. I mean, it is easier said than done, I would say. But in ways, it's a lot. It's pretty much, the way I see it is in the higher levels, people are just trying to get any edge they can. So for OCD, for me, example, like I did all those little things before kicks and I had success for them. And then there'll be a time where you have a slump. And then that's where you gotta, the older you get, you're like, okay, is this stuff actually working or is it not working? And as a pro athlete, if you go out there have a couple bad days, you're out of the door. So you kind of got to fix it quick and deal with it pretty urgently and try to see what the heck is going on in those situations. So for me, I mean, I know other guys do it as well. I'm a big journaler. I journal pretty much every day. I talk to sports psychologists, and for me, those things are massive for me, because if I don't journal in the morning and I go out to kick, there's just certain things you can clear your mind with, and for me, it's just freeing in a lot of different ways to go out there and do whatever. So I think whenever it comes to like the elite athletes that are at the top of the top, being on TV and social media and all this stuff, you see all that stuff. Like a lot of athletes will try to act like they don't see certain things, but I mean, everybody's human at the end of the day. You're going to see those little nitpick messages that are about 30 messages down in the comments. And those are the ones like every now and then they shouldn't linger, but along with OCD, they just stick with you so much and it could kill you. And it could be just some random one person that does it, but those things kind of stick with you a lot of ways. So like elite athletes, I can see, like I know a lot of guys in my world have gotten rid of their social medias in some aspect. Like I'm only on Instagram just because I would see those things, and it's just you can't argue with the world, right? So you're not going to win that fight, and you can't beat the internet. So for me, it's just one of those things. I just feel like it's a lot of people in the higher spotlight are just trying to look for any edge, and then whenever you get that extra light shined on you, it could be bad in a lot of ways too. Because if things do go bad, and I firsthand experience it, the cookie crumbles really fast. So then you're kind of just trying to play catch up after that. And so I feel like OCD is just a way that a lot of guys that do have it and that felt would try to use it to help them, but it's also a lot of ways you don't ask for help, it's going to cripple you.
For sure. And so that's a huge part of this, right? Is just you can't do it alone.
Yeah.
And so you've talked about your support system, and it's so important to have a good therapist that will actually hold you accountable to doing the exposure work, right? Because nobody wants to do an exposure for their OCD. If you do, it's probably not an exposure, right? And so that therapist can help hold you accountable to, hey, did you do your homework last time? Otherwise, it would just be so much easier to get that quick fix.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah. So that kind of leads to, how have your coaches and teammates or support staff responded when they've noticed a compulsive behavior in your journey? And we'll start with Zane and then go to Aly.
Yeah. So for me, a lot of times when they see it, a lot of guys realize I'm pretty open about it. So like usually will come out in practice before game times come around. So people in my role usually tend to be pretty curious. I'll give them credit for that in a lot of aspects, especially some of the coaches. Kind of the mental aspect of the sports world is kind of elevating a lot in the last 10 years. It's still got a long way to go, but at least now people ask questions. And so for me, tremendous support, and honestly, they embrace it. So for me, like, I think the world's seen at this point my certain things I do, and my teammates could care less as long as the ball goes and I do my job. And that's, I mean, essentially it's like a brotherhood, and that's what you want, right? So, and I know for me, like, my coaches have pulled me aside multiple times, like, I don't care. Like, as long as you're not messing up off the field or doing your stuff and being professional, like, it's okay. Like, every human is different. Everybody has different ways to get to success. And I think in my role, I've been blessed a lot to have coaches that pretty much say, like, who cares, man? As long as you're out here helping us win, we're on the same page. So, and with that comes a lot of comfort, and it's just like freeing. Because if you try to go out there and try to hide it or shelter it, now you're not yourself. So you got to be who you truly are and kind of go out there and embrace it. And for me, I'm just unlucky to have great people around me.
And have you had teammates, or maybe not teammates, have you had friends, loved ones, after your story was more publicized, say, oh my goodness, I struggle with that too?
I've had a lot of people in my personal life, but more or less what hit home a lot is the people I don't know. So, and I think I talked about you before the interview a little bit, and you expect to see this stuff from the kids and the teenagers, but seeing from other adults, like, and even like older gentlemen, and seeing how touching it was to them to see the stuff like that. And because, their generation that probably wasn't talking about as much, so these are things they probably had to keep to themselves for 50 years or whatever it may be. So I'm just seeing how much it meant to them that is being talked about now moving forward. It's truly incredible. And for me, it's just, I kind of got thrust into it. And so I'm like embracing everybody I'm meeting and seeing and hearing everybody's stories. And it is truly remarkable. So just seeing and hearing those stories from not the people you know, but the people you don't know, I think goes a lot longer.
Very inspiring.
Yeah.
Aly, what about for you? Coaches and teammates, how did individuals respond when they noticed the compulsive behavior?
When I was younger, I didn't understand that if I was struggling with OCD, it's important to find someone who specializes in ERP and that can help me and navigate that journey, because it's so difficult and very hard. And so I think over the years, through OCD becoming a little bit more talked about, it's helped me feel less alone. And I think helped me understand different ways that I can talk about it, ask for help, and seek professional help as well. And I've also learned over the years the importance of being validated, because I think a lot of people, I believe a lot more people than we realize, struggle and feel alone. I think a lot of people feel like they're alone in what they're struggling with, but I actually believe that if we were more supportive of one another and people talked about what they're going through, I think more people than we realize would actually understand that a lot of people could actually relate to what they're going through. But I also understand through sharing my own experiences publicly, I've met so many people who don't have anyone in their life to go to, or maybe they shared their experience of OCD and someone made fun of them, or someone didn't validate them because they don't understand it. And I just have learned that it's so critical for someone to feel supported and have a community and have just someone to go to, even if they, just want to vent to someone, and just to know that that person is there for them and doesn't make them feel bad, because I think we all have ups and downs. There are some days where I can feel a big improvement, and then there's other days where maybe I'm more exhausted and I'm more stressed and my OCD is worse. And just having someone with me who I know they're not judging me and they understand, it makes me feel so much better, because I think it's can feel really lonely and really hard when I'm with someone and I can feel like they're judging me. So I think that's important in my life now, to surround myself with people who are kind, and even if they don't understand or don't have OCD, they're still, they try to be supportive about it.
Yeah. I think your journeys will resonate with so many too, just because on average, from the onset of symptoms, it takes someone about 17 years to find evidence-based treatment for OCD. And I know that that is a very painful journey when left untreated. And so you are inspiring so many others with your public platforms. And how has being open about your own OCD journeys led to healing, or even brought on challenges with stigma and misunderstanding? And Zane, we'll start with you.
For me, it's been incredibly, incredibly freeing. Like I think in my head, in my world, I thought everybody knew already at that moment, the OCD, and I thought I was very open and public about it. But until this past year, I had no idea. And being thrown in the spotlight and seeing all that stuff that came along with it, I think it's just been amazing for me. It's opened up a world to where in games I'll try to hide certain things. As Ox's fans are hecklers, and especially in the football world, like there's a kicking net right next to the thing, and there's always a group of guys that are just nonstop all day. And it's a tenfold pretty much whenever you're kind of going through an OCD outbreak, and those urges and compulsions are kind of coming out in that moment. And for me, it truly does come out of nowhere. It'll be you're just focusing on your one thing, and then before you know it, you're doing all these other things and trying to do anything you can, because in your head, if you click it, you'll have success, and then if you don't, really bad success. So for me, like just having it out there and being able to like communicate and talk with people, talking to people has helped me more than I feel like it's helped them in a lot of different ways, because it just, one, it gives me the ability to talk and tell my story more and more, and the more that story gets out there, the more and more I have confidence in saying it, and the more ownership I have over it. So within that, it's just more or less embracing it. So for me, having the family that's always supported, having the teammates, having all the support system around, that safety net and my comfort zone essentially, allow me to thrive, because I think a lot of people look at the OCD urges in like a negative light, but they can also be your superpower. And that's what I tell people all the time. I tell a bunch of kids I see struggling with it as well, because I've been there, I've done that. I've had those bad days where things just really go really bad, but I've also had the good days where you try to see the bright side. So the way I try to tell people is it's kind of like life. You just got to see the highs and the lows, the peaks and the valleys, and kind of go from there. And for me, just having it out in the open and having it, it's just freeing. So now it's out there, and I can help other people out, and they can help me out, and it's just an exchange and just getting involved in this world as much as I can. And I think it's been incredible.
Yeah. The more you try to avoid or hide it, it's actually the worse it gets, right? And then I love that progress piece is not linear. There's hills and valleys along the way too. And Aly, what about for you? Has it led to any healing to be more open about your own OCD journey?
When I first shared about my own experience of OCD, I don't even think I really realized I was doing it. I was on a podcast, and I remember being really surprised how many people were talking about the fact that I talked about OCD. And I think I was doing the interview for a couple of hours, so I probably overthought what I said in the interview after and was worrying. And sometimes when I share things for the first time, I have a lot of anxiety about what I said and just worrying, because I also feel so out of control when, oftentimes when, we give an interview, we don't have control over what is put out there. And sometimes things are cut up differently, or sometimes I might say a 5-minute answer, they use a 10-second answer. And so sometimes things might be taken out of context, or it might change the meaning of what I actually meant. And that has been really hard for me. It's probably one of the most frustrating and most difficult parts for me about being in the public eye is not having that, I guess, ownership of, at least it feels that way, of what I'm saying or how I want something to come across. And so I think at the time I was really surprised with how people were responding to it, and I just didn't realize how common OCD was and is. And it definitely was eye-opening and encouraged me to think about what else I could do with talking about OCD. But I do feel that so many people out there know someone or either that is struggling with OCD or they are struggling themselves, or even maybe they've had some experience of it in the past. And so it's been very eye-opening to see how supportive people have been, but also how many people also can relate, and how many people also maybe are in an environment where they just don't have any, they don't know if they have any resources and they don't know where to go. And that's why having this conversation is so meaningful. And I also think in our society for men and boys, I think our society makes it so difficult for men and boys to feel comfortable being vulnerable and talking about OCD, talking about mental health. So I'm very grateful to you for doing that, because I'm sure there's many men and boys out there that are watching that are going to feel more courage. And I mean, especially in your sports world, I think that there's so much pressure to be manly. I think that there's not enough conversation around being vulnerable and being real. It is very manly and also very important. I think everyone deserves to feel validated and to feel that if they're struggling, that they can ask for help.
Yeah.
What's that?
Thank you. I appreciate that.
And so, Aly, we'll start with you on this one. Do you still engage in any exposure with response prevention today? And if so, what does an exposure look like for you?
Well, I'm going to be honest. I was trying to do some last night. I had an early morning flight this morning, and I checked to make sure my alarm was set. And I checked before I got in bed. And then when I was lying in bed, I checked again. So I'm human, but there are certain moments where I really try to push myself, but I also, it's that thought of, okay, well, I have to be somewhere. I have an early flight and I'm traveling in for this for the same day, that you don't want to miss it. And so those are things that are hard for me, but I'm still working on them. And then I think where I struggle a lot is I have a dog that I am so in love with, and his name is Milo. And I find myself before I leave, everything takes me a little bit longer to leave because of him, because I just want to make sure I didn't, leave the stove on or the oven on, or everything, that he's okay. There's nothing that could danger him. And that's really hard. And it's something I know that I will have to be really mindful of when have kids one day, because I just want my dog to be safe. And so I really can't even imagine what that must also feel like when people have kids, is just worrying about them all the time. But that is something that I'm very aware of, and I work on it in therapy. So it's a work in progress. But I think what's been freeing and helpful for me is letting go of this idea that one day everything's going to be perfect all the time and I'm never going to struggle with OCD. I think letting go of that idea has been really freeing for me. And it's allowed me, if I have a certain day where it's a little bit worse one day, it's helpful to remember that this day is going to pass. And it also is a nice reminder of how far I've come, because, there are other times where I've had it a lot worse, where it was taking up a lot more of my time or causing me a lot more stress. So I try to find some way to just give myself a little bit of grace, as you mentioned, but it's very hard, and it's very hard to find. Sometimes it can be very frustrating and hard to find a therapist that understands. I once had a therapist that told me if I was worried I didn't shut the oven off, to put a sticky note by my bed that said I shut the oven off, which is not good.
Not good. You're right.
Not good. And also, this therapist supposedly specialized in OCD. And so at the time, I didn't know, I've learned over the years, as I mentioned, the importance of seeing someone who specializes in ERP, but also if I'm struggling with PTSD, finding someone who specializes in PTSD. There's just so many. I really try to, sometimes it can feel like overwhelming with so many things that I have to work on, but I also have learned that I can't do everything at once. There are certain moments in my journey where maybe I'm focusing more on my OCD, and then other times I'm focusing more on other things that are going on in my life. So I've learned baby steps and patience too.
Yeah, you touch on a really good point. There are a lot of people that say they do OCD treatment that in fact do not, right? And I think one of the reminders that I hold near and dear to my heart for outpatient therapists is that if your patient is not making progress in 12 to 18 sessions, there's something wrong with that picture, right? That you should be having some progress. So that vulnerability, I know so many others are going to be listening and checking in on themselves and their own journey. So I know it's very meaningful. And Zane, are there any breakthrough moments that have been really helpful for you?
For me, I think the big one came this past year. I mean, on a big stage, like having everybody out to see everything and going out there and embracing it and doing that stuff on the big stage like that kind of just reiterated like, hey, you can still do it. You can just be you, be natural. And for me, that's kind of like my motto in a lot of ways. And I mean, I kind of mentioned a little bit, I do a lot of the training and practice with the whole socks things. And even right now, I mean, you live in Houston, it's really hot. You get sweat a lot, your socks start moving. My whole goal is like get through a whole session without touching them, and stuff like that. So I try to work on that as much as I can. And then at home, a lot of stuff is kind of more or less where it's acting up now. We have a newborn baby, and like Aly was saying about her talk, it's like every time I walk out the door, like this morning we left the flight at 4 a.m. and when I was all the way downstairs out the door, I could give him one more kiss. And then, I did one more. And it's like, if I didn't, like in my head, I had these thoughts about the flight would go bad in the worst ways. And then it's like, you can just see how
the worst case.
The rabbit hole really takes advantage. And thank God for my wife, because we're about 15, 20 minutes behind because of that stuff. So it's just one of those things that like I try to work on, try to address, but with the full understanding, like it's never going to be a perfect road. Like it's something you're going to have to live with, and it's a day by day fight. And it's a fight that's worth fighting, though. I mean, it's a lot of benefits that can come with it. I feel a lot of light shine on OCD can be negative, and I feel like sometimes you shine some positive on it too. So for me, that's a big thing I try to do in my aspect. Because I mean, it's easy to talk about the bad, the negative, but I think a lot of people can testify as well. There's positives in it as well that can help you thrive in a lot of different ways.
And freedom. Good treatment works. Yeah, absolutely. Last question I have for you guys is, what message would you want to give to other athletes who might be struggling in the same way as you, but are more afraid to speak up? Zane, you want to take it away?
I would say just own it. Own it, because the more and more you hide it, the worse and worse it's going to get. And the more and more you own it, the more and more you can be your true self. And as an athlete, particularly, you're not going to perform the best you can if you're not your true self. Like if you have a coach that's trying to make you do this thing or that thing, you're playing limited, you're kind of a little frigid. So for me, I feel like that directly corresponds to OCD. If you're trying to, I mean, I'm a perfect example. I tried to hide it for so long. And it's like, if you just hide it, there's going to be those days where crap's going to kind of hit the fan, if I can use that language. I don't know. But, and those are the days where you're just going to realize like, hey, like this whole thing is, in a sort of a way, like not real. Like you convince yourself that you need to do all these things that just had success, and it can also betray you at times as well. And then there's other times when you go out there and you try to, like I say, where I go to practice, and I don't do any of these things, and I'll have the best days of my life. And it's like, oh, like you can truly, truly prove to yourself that you don't need these stuff, these urges that come about. But within that, so much easier said than done, because as a kid, you don't know, you're just trying to get by. And as an adult, I mean, I'm still a grown man with a kid, and I still have these same ideas and same thoughts and the same urges. So the information I try to give people is own it, and then just talk about it, because if you don't talk about it, it's not going to go anywhere, and it's just going to trickle into other parts of your life, which is not good. So just owning it, accepting it, and just being your true self.
Love it. Aly, what about for you? Final message.
I think whether someone is an athlete or not, I think it's really important to find something that brings you calm or something that makes you happy. And for athletes, that might be sports. For me, gymnastics didn't bring me calm. It was very stressful for me. And so I say that because sometimes I think in our world, there's just too much pressure on athletes. And if the OCD is really bad and you're out there and you're not really sure if you want to keep doing it anymore and you don't love the sport anymore, that's also okay. I think it's really important to prioritize what fulfills you and what makes you happy. And if you're not sure what fulfills you, that's also okay. But I think don't be afraid to really experiment with what really brings you joy. And it's so important, I think, to find pockets of the day or the week that just help you relax and help you feel like yourself. I think OCD is a long journey, and it's hard and it's frustrating, but you don't have to do it alone. And I think just give yourself permission to let yourself have fun. I think sometimes OCD can rob us of being present and having fun with our friends and just enjoying what's right in front of us. And that is so hard. And it certainly happened to me way too many times. And sometimes I kind of just have to remind myself it's okay for me to let myself have fun. And it's also okay to ask for help and to talk about it and to name what's going on and what's happening. And it's just know that although it can feel like it, you're not alone. There's a lot of people out there that are struggling, and there is help out there. And I think it's really important to find someone, if you're struggling with OCD, that specializes in ERP, because there are a lot of very well-intentioned people out there. But I've certainly over the years seen therapists who have actually made my OCD worse, and I didn't even realize it at the time. And so now that I'm older, and my sister-in-law has really taught me so much, and I've learned a lot from just talking to her, but how important it is to find people that really specialize in what you're going through. And if you know someone who's struggling, be validating, be supportive. Don't judge them, and make them feel like they can come to you for help. And just know that you don't have to have all the answers, but I think it's important to just be kind and to normalize what so many of us are going through.
Thank you both so much. This is the International OCD Foundation. For OCD Awareness Week, we hope you guys got some great takeaways and recognized you're not alone and help is available. To learn more, to seek support, go to iocdf.org.